So what's next for Crash Bandicoot after Crash Team Racing Nitro-Fueled? Let's talk about that! Whoops, wrong channel. Anyways, this question gets thought about a lot, even by me. When Nitro-Fueled comes out, should we then get a new game or another remake? And there's understandable fear from both sides. The people who are afraid of a new game are scared that they're gonna go immediately back to the Titan stuff, the stuff that killed the franchise in the first place. And the people who are afraid of more remakes are scared that Crash is gonna end up in some remake purgatory and never see a new title. Both fears are completely valid and understandable, but let me calm down at least one of them. For those that are scared of a new game because of the Titan stuff, don't fear. Radical Entertainment, the producer behind those games, has pretty much shut down, and most of the employees that were there have pretty much split up to help support Activision's other projects. They are no longer producing their own games. Then there's also the fact that Activision is a company, and as a company, no matter what you produce, whether it's Nintendo with Mario, or EA with their sports games, they are after the money. And both Crash of the Titans and Mind Over Mutant sold extremely poorly. Meanwhile, the Insane Trilogy in the style of the classic games is out here, selling 10 million units, even though we're only just now approaching the game's 2-year anniversary, and it was an exclusive for its entire first year. The game's sales exceeded Activision's expectations even within the first couple months. They now know that it's not just nostalgia, and they were legitimately good games that people care about and will spend money on. So if they make a new Crash game, it's not going to take after Titans. Now for those who are scared of more remakes out of fear of Crash getting stuck in a remake purgatory, I'm kinda with ya. Now don't get me wrong, I'm not a Naughty Dog purist or anything. In fact, my favorite game of all time comes from the post-Naughty Dog era. But like it or not, most of the games that came out after the original trilogy and CTR either failed critically, financially, or both. For example, Crash Bandicoot The Wrath of Cortex did extremely well in sales, as it was coming off the legacy of the PS1 titles, but it got poor to mixed critical reception. This started causing people to fall off the series as they didn't believe Crash could work in the next gen, which, along with some developmental issues for the next Crash game, Crash Twinsanity, made that game sell extremely poorly despite its mixed to positive reviews. Again, of course developmental issues and delays were a cause of that, but when a franchise releases a game that sells over 7 million units, and then a game that sells less than 1 million units, you have to wonder if there was something wrong with the 7 million unit game. But regardless of whatever was wrong with it, people out there do have some sincere nostalgia for it, and remember it as their first Crash game. So when Nitro-Fueled comes out, we'll have all the Naughty Dog games remastered. And if that's not where we draw the line, then where? If the line is then just all the PS1 Crash games, then all that's left is Crash Bash, which, as much as I like it too, is way too small to meet the standards for games coming out today, no matter how much is added to it or how much polish it gets. And once again, it got mixed reviews and sold poorly, at least in comparison to the previous Crash games before it. If we were to get a remake of Crash Bash, it'd be better off as a side multiplayer mode for a new game. Similar to how Sonic and the Secret Rings had a story mode and then a completely different party mode for multiplayer. If it's all just its own standalone remastered game, it's not going to do very well. And even if it does do well, it's still not going to do anywhere near as well as the Insane Trilogy and Nitro-Fueled, and Activision will notice that. Activision will start to give up on it after a failed remake or two, and then the series will die off again, essentially creating that remake purgatory people are afraid of. So as for me, I'm on the side of a brand new game. Reintroduce Crash Bandicoot and Nitro-Cortex, take advantage of Brio being on the good side now and helping the heroes in Crash 2. And of course update the gameplay. Because no matter how good they are and how much you like them, the level design and gameplay of the original trilogy is outdated. Again, they're fantastic, but if those games originally came out today, they would not be as successful as they were back then. Go check out YouTubers who have played the Insane Trilogy for the first time. People like Alpharad, Markiplier, they always stop at the first game. And even when they beat the first game, they rarely go to the second or even touch the third. People just got tired and lost interest. If we did get a new Crash game, it'd have to update and play very similar to another game in the series. The game that should be remade if we were absolutely forced to have another remaster. Crash Twinsanity. Again, I'd prefer a new game, but if we had to get another remake, then I'm going with Crash Twinsanity. With a Crash Bash multiplayer side mode, of course. Now, I know it seems like I may be contradicting myself because of what I said earlier about financial sales and critical reception. But if you go back, Crash Twinsanity is the only one that had an excuse for it. Crash Bash, Wrath of Cortex, Crash Tag Team Racing, Crash of the Titans, all of them were complete and finished games that reached the full potential of what they could be. They failed on their own. With Crash Twinsanity though, it wasn't its own fault. It had lots of developmental issues, delays, lack of marketing, and it came off the heels of Wrath of Cortex, which didn't do well critically. Neither of those would be a problem if it was the next Crash game. It'd get a brand new development cycle, likely with more team members, better scheduling, marketing, etc., and it's coming off the heels of Crash Team Racing Nitro-Fueled, which is going to do very well. So financial success is pretty much secured. But what about that critical success? It's gotta hit two birds with one stone. Well, when it comes to Crash Twinsanity, the reviews were actually generally positive. The only mixed ones came from the bugs and the unpolished aspects of the game, both of which can be easily fixed in a remaster. And once that's done, critical reception is secured. So we have both financial and critical reception secured just by remaking the games all polished up and with all the bugs fixed. But then comes the topic of adding on to it and improving it, as these Crash remasters have been doing so far. Again, like I said before, Crash Bash, Wrath of Cortex, Crash of the Titans, etc. all got to be the best of what they could possibly be. Crash Twinsanity never got that. If you look back at the history of the game, there's so much cut content. In fact, the amount of cut content likely exceeds the amount of content in the actual game. Crash Twinsanity got praised by critics for everything. How its gameplay evolved from the PS1 titles, making the world more open and explorer-friendly while still being faithful to the design of the old PlayStation 1 games by having levels segmented off in hallway-like designs. It got praised for the story, expanding the lore, world, and characters, especially Dr. Neo-Cortex. Heck, there's even an entire paragraph on its Wikipedia page dedicated to the extremely positive reception and praise towards Dr. Neo-Cortex's character here, and it got praised for switching up and experimenting with fun new gameplay styles. So imagine a remake/remaster of Crash Twinsanity with all the cut content brought back in, essentially doubling everything it got praised for, while polishing it up and removing all the bugs, the only thing it got criticized for. If done right, it could be one of the most successful Crash games ever made, critically and financially, outside of the original trilogy. Again though, overall I would still much rather prefer a brand new game. But if I was forced to choose a remaster, it would be Crash Twinsanity at its full potential with Crash Bash multiplayer. But what do you want? A remake or a new game? And if you want a remake, which one and why? Let me know in the comment section down below. LeopoldTheBrave out.
Oh, how I hate bandicoots.